Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak here in Montpellier. My first time here, very interesting city, and a great conference. And I have this unenviable pleasure of keeping you for the last talk. And I see some of you still staying here, so which is good. I'll try to make it interesting and try not to put you to sleep. So my name is TALLURI. I'm based in San Diego. I'm with Qualcomm Technologies, and we make processors and connectivity solutions. You probably know us best for the things we do in the smartphone space. But what I wanted to talk to you today about is not so much about smartphones, but more about what's been broadly talked about here as Internet of Things, or sometimes we call it Internet of Everything. And I wanted to give you a perspective from someone who lives, kind of like deep below. We make chips. We make chips that make these things work. I was sitting through the afternoon panel today, and actually, I'm the only person, I think, from a chip company today. So hopefully, I'll give you a little bit of motivation for how we see it. It'll be a completely different perspective as opposed to people who see it from the cloud or from GE or from the government and so on. OK, so having said that, I'm going to talk about a few different things and how we see this market evolving. Firstly, a lot of talk about the size of the market and how big it's going to be. At Qualcomm, we are now convinced about the size of the market. And I think a lot of the people in this audience are. That's part of the reason a lot of you are here. So I don't have to really sell you on the opportunity. But actually, one thing you do find is that we are already shipping a lot of product into this space, and it's become a sizable business for us. And I'll give you a little bit more color into that. Because what happens is when you're a chipset vendor, typically you're the first one to ship. Because people then have to take the chip, build the software, build the product, get it out to the market, get it on the shelves, get the services to work, and all that. So we are what you would call at the very front end of it. So we are in some ways the bellwether of the size of the market. If you're shipping a lot of stuff, then hopefully you'll see a lot of products. If you don't, you don't. So it's kind of like one of those things. So if we had this conference, I haven't been here, but if we had it like 15 years ago or something, I bet a lot of the conversation was about PCs and connectivity of the PCs. If you had it maybe a couple of years ago or even 4 years ago or something like that, a lot of it would be about smartphones. And we at Qualcomm spent quite some time on building those. What you find here is that the next big thing that we are looking at is actually these what you call Internet of Things connections. The exciting part about this is when you buy a PC, typically you had one in the house, maybe 2 or 3, as the world evolved. When you bought smartphones, every person in the house had one, sometimes 2. But when you think of IoT devices, it's going to be multiple tens per person. That's just at home. And then I'm not even talking about the smart cities concept. So I'll ask this simple question. Maybe this is the right audience, may not be the right audience. I don't know how many of you know how many IP addresses you have at your house. I counted it the other day, and I think I have like over 50 in my house. And I don't think you would have got that answer if I asked you that a few years ago. If you think about it, all your PCs have an IP address. All your phones have an IP address. All your tablets and iPads have an IP address. Your TV has an IP address. Your sound systems, if you have Sonos one, has an IP address. Your Nest thermostats has an IP address. And your internet access box, your solar system, your light bulbs, just the list goes on and on and on. And when we look at that, we are shipping chips into pretty much most of those things. And that's one simple way to look at the size of the market on the home. Then if you think about cars and you think about all these other products that I put out there, from light bulbs to washing machines to refrigerators to wearable watches, you can see that pretty soon you're going to have tons of connections. So that's typically the way I'd like to motivate the market, not really put a bunch of charts on how big it's going to be. Just look at what you do in your own life, and you'll see how big it is. Now, the problem with this market is, how do you classify that, and how do you get your arms around it to say where should you invest and where should you focus. And a lot of good questions on the panel on how do you make money, what are the business models, why is it already not happening. I'll talk a little bit about that. If you really think about IoT, you can kind of look at it a couple of ways. A couple of big, simple ways to look at it is, the consumer part of it and the industrial part of it. When I talk about the consumer part of it, I would say it is something that touches you every day in a pretty conscious, visible way. That's a simple way to look at it. It's your streaming speaker that you listen to music on. It's your iPad on which you watch a movie, or it's your connected light bulb, and so on. I think we had a very interesting panel on industrial internet and the concept of public sector, private sector, use case creation, impact to the bottom line, and so on. To me, I think about those as things that will bring efficiency into the way we do things. So things cost a little bit less, maybe a lot less, or things get a lot more efficient, so you don't have to spend as much time dealing with a lot of those things. And I'll talk a little bit about that. So at Qualcomm, when I use the word Qualcomm here, you can kind of think of that as a perspective, a chipset supplier. It's probably an easy way to look at it. We look at these as about 5 billion plus opportunities outside non-handsets. That's actually the sizing of the number we look at by 2018. And we focus those into a few big markets. We looked at healthcare, networking, automotive. There wasn't much talk of automotive. To me, that's another huge opportunity for Internet of Things. I think in a few years, it'll be really, really hard to buy a car that doesn't have a modem in it, that doesn't have a Wi-Fi hotspot built in it, because you just expect it to be there. Homes, computing, wearables, those are some of the other segments that we are focused on. Let me switch gears and talk to you about how big a business this is. A lot of people ask us this question. Everybody's talking about Internet of Things. What do you guys do? In 2014, we had over $1 billion of revenue in things that are actually outside the mobile phone. We expect that to be close to 1.6 billion in 2015, and growing fast. And one of the reasons for that is really what I mentioned. We are the early indicator of the market, because it takes some time for people to take what we do and build them and make products. So we are shipping a lot of product, and I want to give you a little bit more color into where we are shipping and which parts of that you see. So here is actually the kind of customers that we ship to. You can see pretty much very few phone companies here, if almost none. We are selling products into watches. We are selling products into compute devices, into automotive, a lot of things to smart home, from connected connected appliances to consumer electronic devices, quite a bit into healthcare, a lot into smart cities, like building infrastructure and so on. So what I plan to do in the rest of the talk is to give you maybe a little bit deeper look into each of these segments and talk about it from a perspective of what we are doing there and what kind of technologies are needed to make this market happen. So in 2002, we spent a lot of time on connectivity and a lot of stuff on mobile phones. 2010 was really all about computing, because most people in the world now access the internet through mobile phones, actually not through your PCs anymore. Most of the developed countries, I think, their first introduction to the internet is probably been through phone. We actually think that moving forward, a lot of people will have access to the internet for the first time through all these other devices and not through the phones. And you wouldn't even think about it so much. Actually, it's already like that. If you had a streaming speaker at home, and I have a couple of boys, and I watch them and see the way they use things, most of the time they're using things connected and not even thinking about it. I almost never see them sitting in front of the TV. They're streaming, video on an iPad or a phone or somewhere. They don't buy music anymore. They don't buy CDs. They don't buy songs. They all have subscription music that streams into some kind of a connected box. At home, we have a Nest thermostat, and we don't really quite worry about setting the temperature anymore. We've just set it for a month, and now it learns itself, and it sets the right temperature all the time. I actually forgot where the thermostat is now, because the house always seems to be on the right temperature. So that's actually how the Internet of Things is going to be in your life moving forward. It's not going to be a conscious, take the screen, look at it, and do something. It's something that's going to happen, that you're going to experience, and you're not really going to think about it too much. And when you do that, there are going to be tens and 20s of devices that you interact that way, not this one PC or one phone that we are used to. That's a totally different mindset and a totally different way of thinking about what the experiences of this Internet of Things would be. Now, there are some challenges, and there are some fairly massive challenges that I've been hearing about today in these different conversations. One of them is it's complex. The technology is complex. And I listed here a few things that, from my perspective, competing in some sense. You really want high-density networks with high throughput, but at the same time, you want them to have low latency, and you want them to have deep coverage. You want them to have long range, but you want them to be low cost. You want them to be mobile, but you want long battery life, and you want them to be stationary. So if you just look at these kind of competing requirements, it's actually a very challenging problem, particularly a challenging problem for somebody who needs to make the engines that have to power these devices. So how do we approach this problem? The way we approach this problem is to segment these markets into different categories and find solutions for each of those. Another thing I find is that if you really want to make Internet of Things a reality, a lot of people talk about connectivity, and we heard a lot about connectivity. We heard about Sigfox and LoRa, and we heard about LTE and Bluetooth and so on. Actually, there was a question that just came up just before I got on the stage here, which was the question about, is it going to be, I paraphrased the question. You could say, when you have all these other connections, how do you manage the cloud? So which is probably a simple way to look at it. I have a slightly different view on that, and I'll kind of base my view on a little bit historic and maybe a little bit futuristic. I actually think that most of the time, when you provide devices connectivity, very quickly you find out that any amount of connectivity you provide is not sufficient, because you really need not just connectivity, but you actually need intelligence. What do I mean by that? I'll give a simple example. A lot of the people here probably bought fitness bands. And when you buy a fitness band, you find that a lot of these fitness bands, very quickly you find that you use it for a few weeks and so on, then you find, I'm not getting the right amount of, I need my smartphone to look at that, and it's not quite there. So very quickly you're like, I don't feel like picking up my smartphone to see how many calories I burned, because now I'm on the machine, I don't know how to get to my smartphone, and so on. So then what happens is all these fitness bands got a little display on them. As soon as you put a display, you need processing. And when you have processing, you have a GPU, you have a CPU, you have a camera in them or not. But suddenly, these things have become more intelligent. So the intelligence now is now at the edge. So that's actually what happens to a lot of these products. When you put a surveillance camera outside your house, initially it looks like you can just put a cheap camera. It looks outside, takes the video, sends it over, and you can do it on the cloud, and you get a subscription plan. But soon you find out that that camera is recording everything that goes in front of your house. Even if a car goes through, it calls it an event. So that's no longer fun. So you actually want some intelligence in the camera, so it only records if somebody comes to the door. Well, soon you find out you don't want it to record when your kids come to the door, when your wife comes to the door. You want it to record only if a stranger comes to the door. Now you need more intelligence in the camera. So suddenly now the concept of intelligence to the edge becomes a reality. And that's how most products have evolved in time. If you think about the smartphone, all it had was a connection, and you could get any data you wanted by going to a website. But pretty soon, you wanted all of them to be apps running on the phone. And this battle of, is it going to be a web-based solution or an app-based solution, I think is kind of done. It is going to be an app-based solution. So that's kind of how we view this, is that in the Internet of Things space, as these things become more and more connected, and as we sell more and more connections, you will find that you will need more and more processing at the edge. And we are seeing that. As we sell more of this connectivity solution, we are having to sell more of the application processor together with it. And these go from selling just Wi-Fi into a refrigerator to selling a display panel with smarts in it into the refrigerator. Because nobody wants to control the refrigerator with the phone anymore. They just want to go up to it and control it. I wanted to leave you with that thought just so you get a feel for that. Now, here is the 3 segments of the Internet of Things market that we look at it as. You can think about it as things you wear on your body, smart cities, and smart homes. At the heart of it, we need to provide software, hardware, development tools, and services for our customers to be able to make products and to launch services with them. Now, if you look at a smart body, we look at things like wearables, we look at things like cameras, we look at things like portable audio. I'm going to run through a couple of the slides. I'm going to talk about wearables because, not because watches are going to be a huge market or not, the jury is still out on that, but what it represents as a category is extremely interesting. It represents as a category a device that is a companion device to your phone when it started, just like how I talked about it. It's an evolution of a fitness band with a display. But pretty soon, you find that it's a device that can do a lot more things. We just introduced 2 new watches in the US. Both of them have their own modems built in. So now you no longer need your phone. You can actually, in fact, move your phone number to that when you go out somewhere. As the phones get bigger like this, you want smaller watches. When you go out in the evening to a party, maybe all you need is a call from your babysitter that's watching your kid and nothing else. And you don't want to take your phone. So very quickly, you find that you need a processing and a modem inside that. And I see this as a category of products on wearables. When you look at virtual reality headsets, when you look at wearable glasses, when you look at smart bands, they're all evolving to this architecture of intelligence and connectivity. Now, let me switch gears and talk about homes a little bit. Actually, this is a topic that's very interesting, because when I talk about homes, one of the questions that I get a lot is, I'll click to this slide, is, when are smart homes going to happen? And a lot of people say it's a myth, it's not going to happen. And part of the reason I find for that is because of this hype we have set up on what a smartphone is. I mean, all of you have probably gone to CES or IFA, and you see these, smartphones where, the wife wakes up, comes up, camera recognizes her, and coffee machine automatically sets to the right temperature, and she wants oatmeal, and the microwave goes to the right oatmeal and whatnot. I think those are nice use cases, but I look at them as what it could be, but not what it should be or has to be for it to be a large market. So it's kind of like talking about R2-D2 from Star Wars and saying all robots need to be like R2-D2. But we have a ton of robots now that make a lot of interesting things. Maybe some of them just do vacuum cleaning, some of them put machine parts. But those are all great markets. And that's the way I look at smart home. I actually answer the question, when is a smart home going to happen, the other way. Is your home not smart today? Like I was saying, when I have 30 to 40 IP addresses in my house, my next TV I buy is a connected TV. The next speaker I'm going to buy is a Bluetooth speaker with a Wi-Fi that streams. My next camera I'm going to buy is a GoPro that's got Wi-Fi on it. Already, if you look at the purchases you make in your house, you're buying things connected all the time. So they all have processors, they all have connectivity, they're all smart in some way. Now the challenge in front of it is how do you make sure using them and making them work together is as easy as possible. That's actually the challenge in front of them. The challenge is really not about making them smart. And that is why we already have a $1 billion business in this space, because all the manufacturers that are making these products are buying products from us and making them connected. I was in China, and I was visiting some of the appliance manufacturers. And I met this company. They make 260 million appliances a year. And I asked the question, what's the big use case of connected air conditioners? Because we were selling tens of millions of chips into them. And the answer I got was actually very simple. They said, well, Raj, it's simple. I mean, in China and countries like India, we don't really have central air conditioning. We don't have Nest thermostats. But the air is not so great either. So we live like 20 minutes away, 30 minutes away from our house. We have a bunch of different air conditioners. We just want to turn on the AC before I go home, so when I go home, the temperature is right. I actually think in a few years, you won't be able to buy an air conditioner that's not connected. Just for the simple use case of having turned it on. I don't know about you. If you had an air conditioner, I go to my dad's house. He has one of these air conditioners in India. I can never find a remote. Just being able to turn it on on your smartphone is a great application. So my concept, my point about smart homes is these devices are getting connected just for a simple ease of use. But then come the more interesting applications of how to make them work. When you get the more interesting applications, these are the kind of things you want to do, which is have a diverse platforms that connect. So I'm going to switch gears and talk a little bit about smart cities and wrap up here. There's been a lot of talk of smart cities. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. Except the main thing about smart cities is about really making the cities more intelligent so they are more convenient for you. Things like water, things like electricity, things like infrastructure, things like parking. How do you make all those things really easy? Things like lighting, so that when there's no cars on the freeways, the lights automatically turn off. There's one point I do want to make. There was a lot of conversation today about different technologies and low-power WAN technologies. The point I want to make is LTE is here, and it's rapidly evolved. And the infrastructure for LTE is built. With the new LTE technologies, with Cat1 and with narrowband IoT, we have a real opportunity to make smart things happen in the infrastructure, just using existing infrastructure. And we've launched a couple of chips on that. I think that that's going to be a big market using LTE to build smart cities because it's a licensed spectrum. Somebody asked the question of licensed versus non-licensed. This is actually what we are doing in this space. We have Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, cellular, and embedded, and we make these products in this little module form, so our customers can take these and build products and ship from there. So that's actually my last slide. I just want to basically say, great conference here. Nice to see all the people working on various aspects of IoT. From our perspective as a chipset supplier who are at the front end of it, who sell a lot of chips into this space, the opportunities for us are really delivering these products, getting them in a form factor that people can use, collaborating with the ecosystems so all these ecosystems work well together, and accelerating it to grow the market. Thank you.